right, so today we are in part 6, Peace in a World Not His. Peace in a World Not His. And, of course, we were motivated to do this because we are in a world not His, and we're struggling to have peace. We can see that more and more the world is going into chaos, confusion, anything that could possibly disturb our peace. John 14:27, Yeshua said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives, but do not let your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." So that's what we're dealing with, is what did Yeshua mean and how did that work out? How do we receive this peace? How do we maintain it? What can cause us to lose it, etc.? And we realized that worry was a big part of it, and we're still talking about worry this week. We may then shift into talking about doubt here in a second. But, worry means to be anxious or uneasy, to have your peace of mind disturbed, to feel concerned about something, to be troubled, to fret, to have negative thoughts, images, emotions, and actions, often repetitive in nature, that result from a perceived potential threat or undesired consequences. This is why we worry. Now, of course, we've spent quite a bit of time talking about worry the last 2 times. And we should all know that not only do we have reasons not to worry, but He's told us very clearly in several places as a commanded almost statement. He says, do not worry. So let's continue in 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 5, looking at this idea of worry and how we are to handle it. In 1 Peter chapter 5, and we'll begin in verse 1. "Therefore, as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Messiah, and also a sharer of the esteem that is to be revealed, I appeal to the elders among you." Okay, so he's establishing his position. And notice that he refers to the sufferings of Messiah. He said, "I am a witness to the sufferings of Messiah." Messiah suffered. And we're told that we are likely to suffer as well. But he's appealing to the elders. This is an appeal to the elders. "Shepherd the flock of Elohim which is among you." Shepherd the flock of Elohim which is among you, serving as overseers, not by compulsion, but voluntarily, not out of greed for filthy gain, but eagerly, neither as being masters over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. Okay, so there's our guidance for elders, for leadership. We are servants. We have oversight responsibilities. We do this not by compulsion. In other words, we're not going to we can do it in 2 directions. We who serve are not being forced to serve and lead, and we're also not forcing the people that we're leading. Both are voluntary. We voluntarily are in the position we're in, and those who are submitted to our oversight are voluntarily there to receive the oversight. He says, and we don't do this for greedy gain, the greed for filthy gain, but we do it eagerly, and we do it not as masters, but as examples. The authority that we have doesn't really come into play until you deal with like a Deuteronomy 17 issue where somebody is coming asking for help, and then they're told, look, if you're going to ask for help, then you need to listen to the help that you're given. If you're looking for guidance, you have to follow the guidance. But we have to be examples to the flock. He says, and when the chief shepherd appears, you shall receive the never-fading crown of esteem. Okay, so when Yeshua shows up, then we're going to receive this never-ending crown of esteem. In the same way, you younger ones, and now we're going to talk to those who are in the care of the elders. You younger ones, be subject to the elders. Now remember, you're doing this, it says voluntarily. But be subject to the elders, and gird yourselves with humility toward one another, for Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble. Now bear in mind, this whole issue with humility and pride, etc., is specifically being directed to the people and how they direct themselves with the elders. And I can tell you from my experience, anybody in leadership can tell you from their experience, that's exactly where the breakdown comes when there's a proud or pride issue or a lack of humility, where the person who's not being subject to the elders, they are having the problem of not being subject because, well, I don't agree, I don't like it, I know better, I'm smarter, they're stupid, whatever it is. That's a pride issue. He said, look, you younger ones, voluntarily subject yourself to those elders because they are there to serve and give oversight. That's what he's saying. Don't be proud. Don't have a problem with your humility. He says, gird yourselves with humility toward one another. For Elohim resists the proud. You may be resisting the leadership, but Elohim may resist you for having a pride issue, a proud heart, a proud thought process. That pride can really get in the way. But he gives favor to the humble. Humble yourselves then under the mighty hand of Elohim so that he exalts you in due time. So realize the wording here. Humble yourselves then under the elders. Does it say that? Yes, it absolutely does. But no, it absolutely doesn't. He's talking about a relationship between two group of people. He addresses, as should always be, the leadership first. You leaders, be careful you don't fall into a trap. You're not doing this for greedy gain. You're not doing this for some sort of power, ego, pride thing. You're doing this to provide an example to the flock and to serve the flock. Because after all, the chief shepherd is coming. And he's going to hold accountable all you underling shepherds, you under shepherds. You're overseers, but you're under him. Remember, I've told you over and over again, everybody, including Yeshua, is in the middle of the vertical path, the vertical alignment. There's the Father at the top with none above. Then Yeshua and everybody else. Everybody's in the middle, and you have to remember that everybody in the middle is held accountable. Yeshua is held accountable to the Father. All of us are held accountable to Yeshua and the Father, and it works its way up. But he says, look, when you humble yourselves then under the mighty hand of Elohim, you do this so that he exalts you in due time. So you're recognizing that the oversight is Elohim through that oversight team. The leadership is representing Elohim. If they're not, why are you voluntarily under them? You should be only submitted under Elohim, selected, anointed, appointed oversight. And then subject yourself to that oversight. Because then you're humbling yourselves under the mighty hand of Elohim so that he exalts you in due time. So we have the alignment. You guys in charge, understand that you're there only for one service, to serve that body. This is not about you. It's not for you. It's not for greedy gain. And all those that are being under the oversight, those who are being served, respect that leadership. Have humility. Submit yourselves to them because they're Elohim's representatives. Now, some of you are going to hear the wrong thing that I'm saying. Don't think anybody that claims to be is Elohim's representative. You are voluntarily finding, you're selecting, you're looking for, asking Father to guide you to the anointed, appointed oversight that you need. Then when you find it, you submit under it. You don't just go submit under anybody that claims to be. Okay, it has to go way beyond their claim to be. Because lots of people are claiming lots of things. I see people with the word prophet in front of their name. I see people with the word evangelist in front of their name and apostle in front of their name. I don't care what they put in front of their name. I got to listen to them and get to know them to figure out where they really are in terms of their anointing and their appointing. Titles are only valid and important if you are actually under that person and you understand and recognize their position in your life. That, I think, really is more what Matthew 23 was talking about when Yeshua says to his disciples primarily, don't you call other people rabbi, which means my teacher, my mighty one, my etc. No, there's one, there's me. I am your teacher. And so you shouldn't be calling me rabbi if I'm not your teacher. He says, when you have a teacher, you give your teacher the right respect because he represents Elohim. Because he specifically connects it here by saying, if you do these things, then you are under the mighty hand of Elohim. Directed through the elders. But recognize that you have to first select out that person. So the titles are only important when that person is whatever that title is to you. I don't walk up to any man who's older than me and call him father, any woman older than me and call them mother. I have one who's my father and one who's my mother. That's the title, essentially. I may refer to somebody at work, if I was on a job site, as a supervisor. I may refer to him as the boss. I don't go up to anybody that owns any other business and call them boss. I mean, they're not my boss, or they're not my supervisor. Titles go with relationship. Titles go with relationship. And so here he's telling you, look, humble yourselves then under the mighty hand of Elohim in that structure so that he exalts you in due time. And then verse 7 is the key. Casting all your worry upon him, for he is concerned about you. What worry could you be talking about here? All the worry. He says, casting all your worry. That means you worry about leadership, you worry about your life, you worry about paying your bills, you worry about your relationships, you worry about your health, you worry about everything. But he's giving you this in the context of verse 1, elders, and then he talks about in verse 5, the ones who are subjected under those elders. This structure is there as a place to cast your worries so that you have no worry. Come into the alignment of the vertical that Yahweh puts in place and cast your worries upon him through the structure. The structure is there to make sure that you're okay. But it's his structure. It's not, I'm not here to make sure you're okay. I'm here to make sure you're okay because he wants me to help make sure you're okay. So it's still about him. I'm just the instrument in his hand to make it happen. That's all the eldership is about. The leadership is about being available tools to do the things that Elohim is doing here in this place, in the below, in the world, in the fleshly place we call the world on earth. He's not in the physical realm to do these things, so he uses human instruments. And so Paul is clearly, Peter here is clearly connecting that when you do these things within the structure, you're doing them specifically as if you're doing them with Elohim himself. So we are to cast all of your worry upon him, for he is concerned about you. Verse 8, be sober, watch, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. So he says, be sober. And that is, but isn't limited to your drinking habits. Okay? Be sober. There's nothing scripturally against you having some alcoholic consumption, especially in times of revelry, at the feast, etc. But it's one thing to have some alcoholic beverage. It's another thing to be drunk. He said, be sober. You can have some wine, but be sober. You can have a beer, but be sober. You can have even strong drink. Deuteronomy tells you that. You can even have strong drink. He says, but be sober. You don't have to go get rip-roaring drunk. Why? Because the adversary is walking around looking for whom he can devour, and you probably will do things when you're not sober that will open up a door for that. So he wants you to be sober. Keep that in mind. Be sober and watch. Okay, could you imagine? Now, I know none of you have ever been drunk. I know that. But just imagine if you were, how well your faculties were working in terms of your ability to watch, if you could even see straight. How much of things going on around you did you actually have an awareness of, if you can remember it at all? He says, be sober because you need to watch. Now, you don't need to do it in any kind of fear because he just told you to cast all your fear upon him. But you need to be sober and watch. Why? Because we have an adversary. And he's walking about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Now, bear in mind that this is perfectly in line with everything I've told you about Hasatan. He's going about, what do lions do? Do you ever watch, if you haven't, you need to do this. Watch some of the nature shows where they show the tundra, wherever they are, out in the wilds where the lions are going out to kill the wildebeest, or they're hunting whatever they're hunting. They don't attack everybody. They look for the weak, the stragglers, the ones that are not paying attention, the ones that are distracted and get separated from the herd. So he gives you an important, metaphor here. Okay? He says he's like a lion. Those people understood what lions did. Okay, so you need to make sure you're not separated from the group. There's safety in the group. That you're sober and watching so that you can be aware if the group is moving or not. So he doesn't want you so much to be aware of what Hasatan is doing, but aware what you and the group are doing. Because Hasatan is watching you to see if you become an easy target. So remember, I've always told you, it's not him creating the problem. You open a door to it. But if you're sober and you're watching, you are less likely to do that. Because he's looking to seek those that he can devour. Resist him, firm in belief, knowing that the same hardships are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. So what does it mean, resist him? Resist him. He's, as I've described, and actually almost every movie's ever described correctly, when they see a little angel on one shoulder, a devil on the other shoulder. What does he do, the devil on the shoulder? He's encouraging the person to do the thing they shouldn't do, but they want to do. There's a part of them that wants to do it, though. He didn't plant the seed. He's like, well, you want to do that. Go ahead. Yeah, you get away with it. It'll be fine. Oh, yeah, you'll have a great time. And the angel's saying, no, this is not good. This is bad. Think of that as Yahweh's voice saying, no, not a good idea. But if the person didn't have the thought to go in the other direction, Hasatan would have had nothing to work with. The person would be like, what are you talking about? I'm not interested in that. But the person's tempted. They're thinking about it. Not because Hasatan put the thought there, but he's encouraging you to go in that direction. So you are to resist the temptation thoughts that he's encouraging you to do. That's how you resist him. Resist him firm in belief. So this is actually talking also directly to the spiritual stuff. It goes back to the very beginning in the garden. Did Yahweh really say you can't do this and do that? Did Yahweh really say this and that? He says, look, you need to resist him because you need to stay firm in belief. You need to be firm in understanding what you believe. You have to be firm in your emunah. See, worry, we talked about it last week, is a huge negative to emunah. If your emunah is strong, there is no worry. Emunah is total trust, belief, faith, whatever words you want to put that all together into one big, lump there, and just lump that together and say that in the context of the Yahweh has it all under control. He's allowing it or causing it. I have no fears. I'm not worried about anything. But if you've cast all your worry on him, you should have no problem resisting the devil and being firm in your belief. Firm in your emunah. Knowing that the same hardships are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. In other words, saying, oh, this terrible thing that's happening is normal. It happens to everybody, my brothers in the world. Why am I all whining about it and worried about it? He started off verse 1 talking about him being a witness to the sufferings of Messiah. I don't know why anybody ever bought into it. I know because it feels so good to think that it would be true. But with everybody who buys into the mainstream, relentlessly putting out there, believe in Messiah and all of the bad things will just go away and you will have no sufferings, which is completely against Scripture. He says, if you embrace me, you will have sufferings. You'll have good stuff too, but you'll have sufferings. He never said you wouldn't have sufferings in following him. So we ought to resist. That's, by the way, that's a lie right from Hasatan. That they're actually putting out there. Because Hasatan is the one that said to Adam and Chava, oh, you won't die. You won't have suffering. Your eyes will be opened and you'll see everything like you'll be like Elohim. So the churches are pushing the same agenda. Oh, just come and believe in Messiah the way we teach him to you and you'll never have any problems. He says in verse 9 again, so these hardships that you're going through, understand and recognize that they are experienced by all of us in the body. You're not alone in the suffering. Everybody faces the same struggles. Maybe not all at the same moment. If you talk to another one of the brothers or the sisters in the body and you tell them what you're going through, they may say, oh, wow, I went through that 5 years ago. I went through that last month. I'm going through it now. It could be any of those options. Maybe they haven't gone through it yet, and they're thinking, wow, that may be something I'm going to go through in the future. All of those things are possible. He says, verse 10, and the Elohim of all favor, who called you to his everlasting esteem by Messiah Yeshua, after you have suffered a while. He's not saying if, he's saying after. He didn't say if you have suffered a while. He says, after you have suffered a while, himself perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. To him be the esteem and the might forever and ever. Amen. So there's no question that in this place that we are in but not of, called the world, we will suffer. And the suffering will never end until he returns. And he will then bring the peace in its fullness. Until then, we can have the peace that doesn't make any sense, the one that goes beyond understanding, because we can cast all our worry upon him. Why can we do that? Because we know that he has it under control, that it's all going to work out. We know how it ends. It ends in a great place, with everything that you possibly could have ever hoped and dreamed for all being there. But that doesn't happen until it ends. It doesn't happen till you end. It doesn't happen until it ends. You may end before it ends, as so many millions and millions and billions of people have over the centuries. But when it ends, which is when Yeshua shows up and puts an end to this age, then it will be over. Then he can truly say, at the end of the millennium, especially when the New Jerusalem comes down, it is finished. In that case, it will all be finished. But until then, we will suffer. But he says, don't worry about it, because after a little while, himself being perfect, he will establish, strengthen, and settle you. And we can receive the everlasting esteem through Yeshua. Amen? Okay. So here's, I think, another perspective. It's good to see we got out of the Gospels now. We're seeing a perspective from Kepha, from Peter, on the idea of worry. But notice that he puts it into the framework of structure. He shows us the structure. Elohim, then the elders, then those who are being served by the elders. The younger ones. And by the way, younger ones doesn't necessarily mean by chronological age. It's all about by time in the walk. Those newer to the walk, those who are elders in the walk, who have the anointing and training to teach the youngers in the walk. All right. So that's going to cover it for worry. Now let's look at doubt. Let's go to Matthew 14. Because after all, there's lots of wonderful words for the things that trip us up. We've got worry and doubt and fear and anxiety and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to go to Matthew 14. And we're going to begin in verse 22. Matthew 14, 22. And immediately Yeshua made his taught ones enter into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. So he just finished talking to the crowds. Okay? Verse 19, he commands the crowds to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he blessed it and broke, etc., and they ate. And so he fed the crowd, and after he did all of that, he told the disciples, go ahead, get in the boat, and then he dismissed the crowds. Now notice, it's not like you would think normally in a worldly leadership. He got on the boat and said to his staff, you guys go dismiss the crowds and take care of them, and I'm going to go retire over here. He sent them, and he dismissed the crowds. Still being the greatest servant. Okay? And so having dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening had come, he was alone there. So he went up into the mountains to pray. And the boat was now in the middle of the sea. So you know what? I'm going to say something. Again, I like to point these out sometimes when it's something I haven't said. he was alone there. So I'm going to guess that when he went to pray, he felt very much in contact with the Father, and then at some point at evening come, he was alone. He had finished his conversation. So now he was alone. He was done with the conversation. And so he goes down to where the water is, and he sees that the boat is now in the middle of the sea. And it was being agitated by the waves, for the wind was against it. So the boat's out there. And by the way, when you picture a boat, please picture a reasonably small fishing boat. We're not talking about any kind of big luxury things like you and I would think about today. But it was big enough to hold the disciples in, so it was a pretty good size, but it's a fishing boat. So it's being agitated by the waves, for the wind was against it. In the fourth watch of the night, Yeshua went to them walking on the sea. So he didn't call to them to bring the boat over, he just walked right out. And when the tall ones saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled. Because remember, it's dark. There's no lights out there except the stars and the moon. They couldn't really see clearly who it was at a distance. Because remember, they were in the middle of the sea. So it's a good distance. So they could see a figure that looked like a phantom walking on the water towards them. Well, I guess that's somewhat reasonable to be a little bit concerned. That they were troubled, saying it's a phantom. And from fear they cried. But immediately Yeshua spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." And Kepha answered him and he said, "Master, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." And when Kepha had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Yeshua. But when he saw that the wind was strong, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Master, save me." And immediately Yeshua stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "O you of little belief, why did you doubt?" And when they came into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat came and did bow to him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of Elohim." All right, so let's break this down, okay? So, and actually, you know what? I wrote in my note the whole "they were alone" thing, so I like that, all right? So he said here that they're in the boat, and they don't recognize him. So they're in a boat. You're in your boat. You as a human being, your life, you're sailing along in your boat, and the wind is agitating, so your life is getting disturbed. You're getting tossed around a bit in life, and Yeshua calls out to you, or he's even walking towards you, and you don't recognize him. And by the way, that could come in the form of the structure. It could become in the form of an anointed, appointed, an elder, a leader coming towards you to help you, and you don't recognize that they're there to help you. You haven't recognized that there's a system in place for that. And so they didn't recognize him, that it was him coming to them. And even after he identifies himself and tells them not to be afraid, they are still afraid and not ready to believe him until they get more proof. Don't we do that sometimes? He says, "It's me." He says, "It is I. What are you afraid of? Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Verse 27. And so Kepha says, "Okay, if it's you, then command me to walk on the water." Now, he wasn't maybe as doubting as that may sound, because he actually climbs out of the boat to do it. So he had a hope, but he had doubt. There's a mixture going on here. Okay? He wants to believe it's him. And there's a part of him that recognizes that if it's him, he's walking on water. It's not like they saw Yeshua do this on a daily basis. Okay, I'm going to do my exercise in the morning, and you guys do laps, and I'll just walk on the water. I mean, this is the first time they've seen this. So there's a mix, though, because Kepha does come down out of the boat. So he had some level of belief, and this is where we all have our potential for tripping up. We have some measure of belief, but we still have doubt at times. And Yeshua says, "It is I, take courage. What are you worried about? I'm here." And he's always right there within arm's length to grab you if necessary. So you shouldn't be afraid. So Kepha wanted more proof. So even after he identified himself and tells them not to be afraid, they still are afraid and need more proof. And so I wrote down in my notes here, be careful what you ask for. Yah will expect you to act on your part of the deal. Okay, that's another piece of this. So he says to Peter, "All right, come." Don't just throw those things out there if you're not going to follow through. Now, to Peter's credit, to Kepha's credit, right? He actually went. He said, if it's you, well, then command me to be able to walk on the water. He says, no problem, come. So be careful what you ask for. Yah will expect you to act on your part of the deal. And when he answers you, this is the next part of it. What happened? Peter walked out on the water, and he was working. He was walking on water. By the way, if anybody asks you, well, whoever walked on water, not just one, two. He did walk on the water. Maybe not that far, but he walked out far enough. Close enough where Yeshua could just reach out and grab him. But when he answers you, when you cry out to him and he answers you, don't allow distractions of the flesh to generate fear and doubt in you and cause you to take your eyes off Yeshua. There's the problem. There's the problem. What happens? When he saw that the wind was strong, he was afraid and beginning to sink. He didn't start sinking until he took his eyes off Yeshua and started to have doubt because he got afraid. He became afraid from the wind and all of the things that are going on. It wasn't enough that he was walking on the water. He was distracted in the flesh by the other things. See, this is all a literal event that was there for a metaphor, though, to teach us so many powerful lessons, even though it was actually a literal event. So when he answers you, when you cry out to him, don't allow distractions of the flesh to generate fear and doubt in you and cause you to take your eyes off Yeshua. That's really the key. Now, of course, after that happens, he starts to sink. Yeshua reaches right out and grabs him. And I'm going to guess, my picture of it is that he grabs him, pulls him right up again so he's above the water, standing face to face with Yeshua. And then I'm going to guess they walked back across the water with Yeshua holding his arm or holding his hand and leading him back to the boat. It doesn't say any of that, but it seems to be a reasonable, conclusion to go to, is that so Peter got to walk back with him the rest of the way. He reached out, picked him up. He said, okay, now just stay with me and walk onto the boat. And then those in the boat bowed to him and said, truly, truly, you are the Son. But we have these moments, not where you get to walk on water, but these moments where you realize, truly, truly, he is the Son. Truly, truly. This is not the first moment they've had that. It won't be the last. This is not the first moment they've had doubt, and it won't be the last. Remember, this same Peter, the same Kepha, who actually took the boldness to say, command me to walk, and then went out and actually walked, is going to deny him 3 times. Same guy. We have our moments of strength in our emunah, in our faith, and we have our moments of weakness. And it's things like doubt. That's the problem. He says, oh, you of little belief, why did you doubt? Connecting, oh, you of little emunah, why would you doubt? Well, because you can't doubt if you have strong emunah. So he knows that there was a weakness in the belief. The stronger your emunah, the less fear, the less doubt, the less worry, the less all those negative emotions. As a matter of fact, if you have true, full emunah, you have none of those negative emotions. Because there's no room for both of those thoughts in your head. Your system cannot have both faith and doubt at the same time. Just like you cannot have both, anger and love, joy at the same time. You just can't do it. You can't have peace and you can't have turbulence at the same time with those negative turbulent emotions, etc. And so you have one or the other. If you have fullness of emunah, there is no problem. So how do you have peace in a world not his? You have to have emunah. You got to have that fullness of belief and trust and faith in him, that it's all under control. He says, walk on water. Hey, no problem. Let's do it. Let's walk on water. He's in the boat with you. We have a different story and account where he's in the boat and another storm is raging. And this time he's in the boat and he's sleeping. At least he looks like he's sleeping. Who knows? He's certainly not unaware that there's a problem, but he's also aware that it's not really a problem. They're just thinking it's a problem. But he wants us to see the imagery of the panic and the fear in the midst of him laying there in the boat saying, but I'm here. Why are you afraid? I'm right here. Well, the same idea there. He says, don't be afraid. It's me. Take courage. All right, let's go to James chapter 1. We're going to get a bunch of different references in today. James chapter 1. All right. Beginning in verse 1. So we got to hear from the Gospels. We've gotten to hear from Peter. Now we're going to hear from James. James 1:1. Yaakov, a servant of Elohim and of the Master Yeshua Messiah, to the 12 tribes who are in the dispersion, greetings. Okay, so we know who's talking. It's Yaakov. Who's he talking to? The dispersed tribes. Okay, that would be us. We're in the dispersion still, since this was written. He's sending you greetings. He says, my brothers. So he's telling those in dispersion, you are still brothers with those who are at headquarters, so to speak, here. He says, my brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. And that's when you say, all right, I'm throwing this out. This guy's nuts. He's crazy. What do you mean, counted joy? But he explains. Because you know that the proving of your belief works endurance. So you counted joy because in the trial, you develop your strength in your emunah. The trial is like going to the gym when you want to strengthen your muscles. You push weight or resistance. Basically, it's resistance training. Weights are what they call resistance training, right? You're pushing or pulling something that is resisting your desire to push it or pull it. He says, look, when you have a trial, it's working your belief muscles. And it's going to strengthen your endurance. You go to the gym on a regular basis or whatever athletic thing you're doing and you do it on a regular basis, guess what? It builds your endurance. We went for a walk around my neighborhood yesterday. And it's got some pretty good hills in it. And I didn't have the endurance I thought I had. I was huffing and puffing a little bit. But you know what? If I do that almost every day, except Shabbat, if I do that 5-6 times a week, whatever, guess what's going to get better? My endurance. It's going to get easier and easier to do. I've just been spending too much time standing or sitting in front of a desk. Because my desk goes up or down, so I stand in front of it more than I sit. But that doesn't have a lot of motion in it. So I went and did something that I didn't have endurance for, but if I do it, it will build the endurance. He says here, don't worry about the trials, count it joy, because the trials are there to build a muscle you need to build called your belief and your endurance in your belief. Because the problem that the apostles had, even when we read that in Matthew, is that their belief did not have endurance. They had a belief, but it was weak. I had the ability to walk around the block, but it was weak. You see what I'm trying to say? There's an example that you need to get. He says, you need to know that these trials are there because they're going to prove your level of belief, not just to him, but to you. You need to know where you stand in all this. Because we have a really big problem with thinking we stand and then we fall. Be careful, you think that you stand. In other words, be careful, you think, I've arrived, I've got what I need, I've got my fullness of, I believe, nothing will shake my tree. Oh yeah, let's see how that really works. It'll shake your tree. And we'll see how that, in terms of your endurance, in terms of your belief level. Because you need to know that the trial is going to prove your belief and it's going to develop endurance, and then your endurance can have a perfect work, so that you be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Okay, so the endurance is going to have you have a work filled with integrity. Not perfect without any problems, but filled with integrity as you strive towards the perfection. There is no expectation in Scripture that you actually become perfect. That the desires there, the efforts there is what Scripture wants. Because Scripture also understands that in the flesh you can't ever get to perfect. But as you strive for it, you're demonstrating a heart which will then be a heart that he can trust to give you the perfect, to change you into the incorruptible. So the endurance is to have a perfect work so that you can have fullness of integrity and be complete, lacking in nothing. Again, here the idea of complete doesn't take away anything. It says that you can be complete so that you have everything. So you're filled to overflowing whatever you need. So complete here has the idea of filling up, not getting rid of. And if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it shall be given to him. So he's telling us that wisdom is connected to this problem. If you are struggling with the first two things he says, which is verses 2, 3, and 4, this idea about counting it joy, improving your belief and endurance and all that stuff, then you're having a problem with wisdom. Because it takes wisdom to understand the value of a trial. It's not an intellectual thing. It's not an intelligence thing. It's not smartness that figures it out. It's wisdom that figures it out. If you lack wisdom, ask Elohim for it. He'll give it to you generously, without reproach. But he should ask in belief, verse 6, not doubting. There's your problem. You have to have belief that if you ask for it and you receive it, it's going to do what it's supposed to do, and not doubt that it will do what it's supposed to do. Not doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. Do you think James remembers the boat? Both times? Whichever boat you want to go to, either the one with Yeshua in it or the one with Yeshua walking towards it. He says somebody that's doubting is like a man who's like a wave that's the sea is driven, tossed by the wind. Now, of course, if you don't know enough about the scripture, if you haven't read the Gospels and the other places, you wouldn't sit there going, I bet you that made a big impression on James, because Yaakov is sitting there going, hey, if you have doubt, it's just like the wind tossing the sea around. For that man should not think that he shall receive whatever from the master. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So this is a problem. If you have doubt, you're going to be unstable in all your ways. You're going to be double-minded. So let's connect this to peace in a world not his. Did they have peace on the boat when the wind was blowing? No. Why? Because they were worried. They had doubt. Did they have peace when they saw the phantom, which was Yeshua? No, because they had doubt. They had worry. They had fear. Peter, did he have peace when he was walking out of the water? Well, for a minute, until he realized the wind was blowing, and then he had fear and doubt. No peace. You can't have peace in a double-minded state. It's only the single-minded Yeshua mind that has peace. Let the mind of Yeshua be in you. That's where peace comes from the mind of Yeshua in you, because he has peace. He is known as the Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. That's why he's able to give you peace. But he doesn't give it to you as the world gives you. He's going to give it to you through trials, which will strengthen your belief, which brings what? More peace. See, the world would give you something. They would hand it over to you. They would probably sell it to you before they would give it to you, but they would give it to you. He says, no, I'm going to provide it through a process. Yeshua says, my peace I give to you, and I'm not going to give it as the world gives, because I'm going to give it to you through a process that's going to grow your emunah, and then you'll have peace. That's going to grow your relationship with me, and then you'll have peace. So that's how I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to give it as the world gives. Let's go now. I'm actually going to a second page of notes today. That's good. Let's go to Genesis chapter 3. We're going right to the beginning. We're going to deal with this idea of being afraid. And I think this one's going to be pretty cool. Genesis chapter 3. And this is also going to relate to 1 Peter, because he told about resisting the devil, right? Chapter 3 and verse 1. And the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said, I didn't know I was going to be tested today or quizzed. I didn't study. And the woman said to the serpent, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, which Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. And the serpent said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. Now, by the way, when he says that, did anything that existed at that point have any idea what death was? So she didn't know to be afraid of it. She didn't know what it was, didn't know what it looked like. She was just told, if you do this, you'll die. Now, I'm sure there had to be some understanding, otherwise there would be no leverage there, that death meant the cessation of life. But yet, she had not experienced it, hadn't seen anybody else experience it, didn't know what that was or what that would look like. So she didn't have a fear of that like she should. And so here's the serpent going, well, you don't know what death is. You've never seen it. What are you worried about? Maybe there's no such thing as death. You're not going to die. For Elohim knows that in that day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. So he's saying, it's just a scare tactic to keep you away from something he doesn't want you to have because he wants it all to himself. The true relationship had not yet developed between them and him. Him being Elohim, not him and the saint, talking about the serpent. They did not truly understand that relationship. So Hasatan is trying to say, oh, he's just trying to keep something from you. So he's using a scare tactic to scare you away from it, knowing that that'll keep you away so he can keep it all to himself. So Elohim knows this. And the woman saw, in other words, now her eyes are open to a certain degree. She's looking again. She goes, well, the tree was good for food. In other words, it looked like it had stuff that was good to eat, that it was pleasant to the eyes, so it had an appeal. The tree was desirable to make one wise, and she took of the fruit and ate it, and she also gave it to her husband with her who ate it. Now, so the woman is dealing with the things that we see in other places where it talks about the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, the desires of the flesh. So you see that all playing out right here at the very, very beginning. And so as you go through this, it says, then the husband ate of it. Now, I know other people make an argument. I'm going to make my argument. I blame him more than I blame her. She was made as a helpmeet to him. He was standing, in my opinion, right there. It doesn't say that she went searching the garden for him with his half-eaten fruit and handed it to him, or another one that she picked off. It says she saw the food was et cetera, she took it, she ate it, and she also gave it to her husband with her, and he ate it. So there's a lot of things that didn't happen that should have happened. We'll blame her first. She should have said, excuse me, you need to talk to him, not me. I'm not supposed to be talking to serpents or strangers or whatever. And he should have, once he saw her talking, because she didn't do what she should have done, he should have stepped in, like an annulling vow type of thing or anything else like that as a covering, and she said, oh, hold on, honey, I got this. Sweetheart, why don't you step over there? I'll talk to the serpent. You don't need to be questioned by this creature, the Nachash. So those two things didn't happen. But so now you see her eat, and so he eats. After all, she ate it first, and you got to wonder, well, he watched her not drop dead. So maybe the serpent's right. Maybe you won't die. After all, she ate it, she didn't die. She took a bite, didn't keel over. I mean, we don't know what they were thinking here. We can only speculate. He says, but then the eyes of both of them were opened. Their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. And they heard the sound of Yahweh Elohim walking about in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh Elohim among the trees of the garden. So what happened here? The eyes of both of them were opened to what? See, you would think that it was open to the knowledge of good and evil. Well, to some degree, if you understand that knowledge of good and evil means that they have now a relationship with both. They have a relationship with good and a relationship now with evil because they've disobeyed. And they now realize that they're naked. And I've talked about this metaphorically in other teachings, that naked has to do with being exposed. In other words, now their sin has been exposed. They've been their sin has been bared out to the world. I mean, they could see. They're walking around they could care less that they had no clothes on for all this time, however long it was. So it wasn't like all of a sudden they became sort of aware of their sexuality or they became prudish or some other thing like, oh, I'm naked, and then covering themselves. What had happened? They had become intimately understanding now good and evil, and they were exposed. They felt something they'd never felt before, vulnerable, guilty, etc. So when your brother's naked and he's exposed, why don't you offer him covering? And so this is part of the idea here from a metaphorical point of view. Now, they're giving us the story in the physical saying, so they made loincloths out of leaves and stuff, so they actually made something to cover themselves. But really, this is talking about a spiritual problem, that they were naked, they were exposed. Because there's lots of places in the prophets where that is used in that kind of a metaphor for Israel, is that your nakedness will be exposed to the world, that you have done the things that you have done, and it will be now known and open. So then they hear Elohim walking in the cool of the day, and they hide themselves. There's an effort in futility. But they didn't have a relationship enough to understand him yet. And Yahweh Elohim called to Adam and said to him, where are you? By the way, have you ever done this as a parent or as an uncle or a cousin or something with the little children that you may be, in a family, and you play hide and seek with them, and you know exactly where they are, and you go, where are you? And they're all giggling like you can't find them, and you can hear them right there behind the curtain or wherever they are, behind the furniture. But you go, I can't find you. Where are you? But you know exactly where they are. Well, here Yahweh's like, well, where are you? In other words, why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. Now, Yahweh made him naked. Yahweh interacts with him and has him name animals, decides he doesn't have a helpmeet, makes Eve for him, makes Chava for him. All this time he's naked. All this time he's interacting with Elohim and he's got no clothes on. He said, well, I was naked. In other words, I realized I was exposed now. I was no longer covered by you. Remember we talked about the metaphor of walking down the path to the kingdom. Here they were literally in the perfect place, and he stepped outside of it by an action. Not by literally leaving it, but stepped out of it by what he did. He was no longer covered. Like in that metaphor, you're walking on the path to the kingdom, you're covered by the blood, you step off the path, you're no longer covered. So what do? You hurry up to get back on the path. So instead of hurrying up to get back on the path, they hide instead. Not the right response. But they were first. They had nobody to teach them. And so they're experiencing these things. And Yahweh allowed this so that we would have this story, so we would understand what this looks like. So he said, I was afraid because I was naked. Why would being naked make you afraid? Hadn't made him afraid earlier. They're both running around naked all that time, whatever that naked was. Now, I think that naked may have had to do with not having skin even. They were just these energy beings with eternal life. Because he's going to cover them with skins. We think of how he slaughters an animal, puts it on him, but maybe that's when he puts the flesh suit on him and says, now you're going to die. Perhaps they didn't have a flesh suit until this moment where they now realize they're naked. Okay? He says, so I was naked, so I hid myself. And he said, who made you know that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree which I commanded you that you should not eat? The man said, the woman who you gave me, she gave me the tree and I ate. The first of the greatest game we love to play, pointing the finger, passing the blame. Started with the very first man. Not my fault. She did it. So the man said, the woman, she did it. And Yahweh looked at the woman and said, what is it you have done? And she said, I didn't do it, he did it. He points at the serpent. He tricked me. He deceived me, and I ate it. So Yahweh then goes to the serpent. Now notice that this is why I believe the blame starts with Adam. He didn't go to the serpent first. Didn't go to Eve first. Went to Adam first. You're responsible. What'd you do? When the people did all the things that they did Yahweh go to the people or to Moses? Went to Moses. He said, what's this going on that your people are doing that you brought out of Egypt? Your people. Leadership first. That's why I believe Adam was responsible. Because Adam is the first one. He says, what'd you do? You allowed this to happen, Adam. Because there are others out there that believe that Adam was just being a wonderful husband and sacrificed himself for his wife so that she wouldn't die and he would live. I don't agree with that. He's the first one getting blamed here. Yahweh doesn't say, I appreciate your sacrifice for your wife. And he didn't say, well, look, I knew she was going to die. I didn't want her to die without me, so I did this. He said, well, she gave it to me, so I ate it. It's her fault. So the blame starts going down the list here. It's passing the blame all the way down. And then she said, well, the serpent deceived me, so I ate of it. Oh, my goodness. So what's going on here? Their choices did what ultimately? Their choices, meaning man's choices, our choices as exemplified by the first Adam, the first man, caused them or us to be what? Placed into a world not his. This is where it starts. Because they're in the garden, that is a world that's his. Can we agree? Even the Jews today are all hoping to go back to Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. They expect that the world to come will be essentially Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. Just like that, just like it was. So their choices got them thrown out as a consequence. And so when they get thrown out, this is the problem. They're now in a world that is. Look, it says here in verse 21, and Yahweh Elohim made coats of skin for the man and his wife and dressed them. Coats of skin. Is this where he put them in a flesh suit? Because people will say, well, this is where the first offerings were, because he slaughtered the animals and put skins on them. It doesn't say that. It just says he put coats of skin on them. And he dressed them in skin. And Yahweh Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil, and now let us put out, lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So Yahweh Elohim sent him out of the world that was his into a world not his. Sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken, and he drove the man out. And then he put guards, the cherubim at the east of the gate of Eden, with the flaming sword to block the way. So this was the beginning of man living in a world not his. It's nothing new. We have for the last 6,000 years been living in a world not his. And it started right here when they chose to live in the flesh suit instead of to stay in the uncovered suit. The one, I should say, the covered by him but uncovered by flesh. See, remember, look at the metaphor there. They were covered by him and now they're covered by flesh. They left the world of his to be in the world of flesh. In his world there was peace, but they didn't resist the devil, as we're told later in the scriptures, which is an acknowledgement of what was going on here. And so that cost them the world that was his, Elohim's, and put us in a world of flesh, a world not his. Told you this was going to be cool. All right? This is really, really important stuff. This is where it all begins. This is how it starts. It starts with a wrong thinking process that then emotions get, you heard me teach this before? Here's the first time. A thought was allowed to be dwelled upon because after Hasatan put the thought, now bear in mind, I'm sure she had these thoughts already. I'm sure she walked by the tree and looked at it and said, I don't get it. That thing looks good. It looks like the fruit looks great to eat. Because all of you have looked at trees and seen fruit and said, I would never eat that on a bet. Another fruit that you say, I bet you that tastes great. It looks wonderful. It just looks delicious. It looks good for you. And so I'm sure she had these thoughts. Trying to understand. I mean, if you were the only beings alive and there was only one rule officially that you knew about, which is not to eat of this tree, wouldn't you maybe think, as a child, as soon as your parents made rules for you, one of the things that you did was say, well, why? Why can't I do that? Isn't that the first thought you had as a kid? Every time your parents said, don't do this and don't do that for the first time they said it, your brain said, well, why not? Why not? Why can't I do that? If you're a parent, you've heard that question 1,000 times a day. Well, why not? Why? Why can't I? Why not? Why shouldn't I? What's the problem? What's the big deal? Then as they get to be teenagers, they put more words to it. Well, I don't understand. What's the big deal? Why can't I do that? So here you have, I'm sure that they had that thought, but now he crystallizes the thought Hasatan does for her to think about it, to meditate on it. And she looks at the tree and she goes, well, yeah, it looks good. And, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That sounds like something I should want, to know good and evil and whatever. And then he says, you know that the reason Elohim did this is so he would keep you from becoming like him. Now, if the only beings that exist are you, your husband, and Elohim, I mean, this is all you know, and you're thinking, and clearly he's more powerful, and clearly you understand how he brought all this in and all that other stuff, but this might make me like him? Oh, you're just trying to keep something away from me that you know is going to make me like you. So she thinks about it now. She's thinking about it and meditating on it and dwelling on it. It doesn't say how long that took, but she's looking at the tree and she's really thinking about this stuff. And guess what? The emotions are stirring up. Well, why would he keep that from me? That wasn't right. Why would if he wants all these good things for me, if it's good for me, why wouldn't I want it? But all these thoughts, the jealousies, the envies, the wanting and desiring and the cravings and all that's happening. So the emotions are going to manifest an action. She reaches out, grabs it, and eats it. Now, I'm sure she had these thoughts before, but they didn't manifest into anything because there was never any emotion to it. Her emotions were into trusting the Creator. Now we got someone popping that bubble a little bit saying, have you really considered why he said it? I mean, the conversation may have gone more along those lines. Well, sure, he said that, but is that what he meant? Well, why did he say it? Don't you know that he only said it because he's trying to scare you so that you don't have what he has? He's just trying to keep something good from you. I've had people say things when I talk to them about their jobs, and they say, well, my boss called me to work in on Saturday. I said, well, but you can't do that. It's Shabbat. But if I don't go in, they'll fire me. And Yahweh wouldn't want me to be fired because then I couldn't take care of my family. That's a Hasatan thought. Yahweh does want you to take care of your family, and he wants you to do it not on Shabbat. And why don't you trust him, O ye of little faith? But I'll get fired. Okay. So what? If you're in your 50s, I'm going to say, just to kind of pick a random age that's old enough, you probably have been fired before for whatever reason, or laid off or something, and you survived. You've been unemployed before and you survived. Not everybody, but most people probably have had these experiences. You're trying to justify doing something you shouldn't do, which is what Hasatan does. He tried to justify to her something she shouldn't do by convincing her that it's okay. Now bear in mind that once that happened, her peace was disturbed. That's what he did. He disturbed her peace. And now without peace, she started making bad decisions. With emunah, you make good decisions, you have peace. Complete faith, complete trust. And so just again, to say this again, their choices, which equates to mankind's choices, cause them or us to be placed in a world not his. A place where no peace. A place with no peace. And we're returning at some point to ultimately the garden. Revelation 21, the new Jerusalem comes down to the new earth from the new heavens, and we're going to have a place that's correct. And the tree of life is still going to be there in the middle. But you notice the other tree is not there. Only one tree. when they figured out that they made a mistake, last point I want to make before we end it for today. When you figure out that you made a mistake, just like them, don't do what they did. Don't hide. Teshuvah and repent. Repent and turn around and get back under the covering. Yeshua provides us something that they needed that they didn't have. He had to die many thousand years later, but he had to die to provide the ability to be covered again by him instead of just covered by flesh. See, right now you're only covered by flesh, and guess what that's good for? One lifetime. There's no warranty, there's no extended warranty. You get one lifetime out of the flesh suit. That's all it's good for. When they were covered by Elohim, they had no lifespan. They had unlimited lifespan. There was no death. But then you chose to be covered by the flesh suit. What is the flesh suit? Doing it my way, doing what I want. That's the flesh suit. So now they're covered by the flesh suit. He said if you wanted to be covered by me, everything would have been fine. But you know what? I wonder, and it's pure speculation, but we can speculate here. I wonder, had they not hid and not pointed the finger, but to made teshuvah and repented, if he might have just forgiven them and worked the process for them to stay in the forever life. But they didn't. Nobody owned their stuff. That's what caused them to be said, you know what? You are now the first of all mankind, and mankind, because Abba knows the beginning and the end at the same time. He said, in all of your progeny, all those that you're going to bring into the world after you are going to have the same problem. The problem of ownership of what you do. You want to know the biggest lesson here? Own your stuff. And then fix it, right? Own it. I've said this 1,000 times. Own it, fix it, and then release and move on. But you got to own it and fix it. Do you see Adam and Chava owning it? Nope. Not even once. There's not a single verse where they own it. Do you see them fixing it? Nope. Didn't do anything to fix it. Didn't apologize. He made me do it. She made me do it. Pointing the finger at everybody. The only one that doesn't point the finger is Hasatan. He knows he did it. He just doesn't care. And that's how we end up in the flesh suit. So you want to be out of the flesh suit someday? Own it, fix it, strengthen your emunah. Don't be afraid of trials. Count them as joy. Build your endurance, and then you'll have peace. Amen? Amen. Father, we come before you, and Father, we want to have our emunah strengthened. We want to have peace. We don't want to have fear. We don't want to have doubt. We don't want to stay in the flesh suit, in the flesh world, at a place not yours. We want to be in a world that is covered by you, and that is your world. And so, Father, we thank you for these words that you've allowed to have written down for us, for our example, so we can learn and be edified and be encouraged and to make the adjustments by seeing and observing the failures and the successes of others so that we can then learn the right behaviors. So we can avoid what was failures and we can embrace what was success. And so, Father, we want to thank you and praise you for your love and your mercy in providing us with the path to ultimately a world that is yours. And so, Father, we are just so appreciative now. We want to give you all the glory and honor and thank you and praise you as we come before you, seeking and asking and knocking in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. Amen.